Cotton.
Mr. Colby, welcome. Let's talk about the threat of a nuclear Iran. I have some concerns about what you've said in the past, namely that if we had to choose between hoping to contain a nuclear Iran and preventing Iran with military force from getting nukes, that we should tolerate a nuclear Iran and try to contain it. For instance, you've written that, quote, containing a nuclear Iran is eminently plausible and practical objective. You've approvingly cited the view that, quote, the only thing worse than the prospect of an Iran armed with nuclear weapons would be the consequences of using force to try to stop them. That's certainly not my view, but more important, it's not President Trump's policy. He has said for more than a decade that Iran cannot be allowed to get nuclear weapons. He declared in a national security presidential memorandum last month that a nuclear Iran, quote, poses an existential danger to the United States and can never be allowed to acquire or develop nuclear weapons. In your written answers to the committee's advanced questions, you now seem to echo President Trump's policy. You wrote, for example, the United States should deny Iran from gaining a nuclear weapon. So it seems that we all agree that Iran cannot be allowed to get nukes. The question is how to stop them. Let me be clear up front on a couple points. First, I think everyone would welcome a diplomatic deal in which Iran completely turns over its nuclear program, as Libya did in 2003. And second, I don't think anyone here advocates for invading and occupying Iran for a decade to stop its nuclear program. I certainly don't. But here's the question. Diplomacy fails, Iran is racing to a bomb. We have a choice. Tolerate a nuclear Iran and hope to contain it. Use military force to stop Iran from going nuclear. In that case, will you commit to providing the President with credible, realistic military options to stop Iran from going nuclear?
I do commit to that, Senator.
And to be more precise, those credible and realistic options are more than simply saying we can give Israel some bombs and they can take care of it.
Yes, I agree with you, Senator.
It's well known that Israel lacks certain military capabilities that we have, such as aerial refueling tankers and heavy bombers with deep penetrating ordnance. Do you believe that at least one option for the President to consider how to stop Iran from going nuclear should be to use our tankers and our bombers, whether in tandem with Israel or in the lead?
Senator, I wouldn't want to get ahead of the President on specific decisions, but I think those are the kinds of things that should be absolutely part of this, the discussion. And if I were confirmed, those would certainly be the kinds of things that I would raise for the consideration of the Secretary and ultimately the President.
Thank you. And to be clear about why this is so important to us, to the United States, not just to Israel or our Arab friends, why President Trump says Iran, a nuclear Iran, is an existential danger to us. You agree that it's an existential danger, not just a severe danger, as you said in response to Senator Gillibrand, or a significant one, as you said in your written answers.
Yes, a nuclear armed Iran, especially, Senator, given that they, as we've discussed, that they've looked into, or we know they've worked on ICBM range capabilities and other kinds of capabilities that would pose an existential danger to the United States.
So they have a space launch program, which is flimsy cover for an intercontinental missile program that could be used to hit us here in Washington, in Little Rock, or elsewhere in the continental United States. It is an immediate threat to Israel and our Arab friends, but it is a threat in the not-too-distant future, probably in just a couple of years, to the United States.
Senator, I don't have access to the intelligence information, but that sounds very consistent to me.
And do you agree that providing President Trump with those credible military options is actually one way to increase leverage to have an airtight diplomatic deal?
Yes, I do agree.
That a lack of military options would make it harder to get a deal?
I do.
Thank you. I want to turn briefly to Taiwan. You have said here today and in your past writings that Taiwan is a critical matter for us. You wrote in 2016 that you thought we should give explicit security guarantees to Taiwan, reversing a decades-old policy of strategic ambiguity. You opined in the same way in 2020 in response to a hearing in the House of Representatives. Over the past couple years, you've started to say, as Senator Wicker pointed out earlier, that Taiwan is a vital interest, but it's not existential interest to us, or it's not essential to us. It seems that you have changed your thoughts somewhat in the last couple years. That is not, I suspect, because of Taiwan's defense spending, which, though still inadequate, I agree, has been trending upward for 7 straight years. So could you explain to us why in the last few years your views seem to have softened somewhat about the defense of Taiwan?
Absolutely, Senator. I've always said that Taiwan is very important to the United States, but as you said, it's not an existential interest. It's very important. The core American interest is in denying China regional hegemony. What's changed, Senator, as we discussed, is the dramatic deterioration in the military balance. So if I could use the Churchill example again, it's different to engage in a futile and overly costly effort that would destroy our military. And I know you've written very eloquently about this danger in your recent book. The other point that I would say, Senator, is that I believe that we actually have implicitly our relationship and our commitment to Taiwan is largely implicit or indirect or customary. We actually have specified our commitment through things like the designation of Taiwan as the pacing scenario for the department. So my view that the combination of the greater threat from China and the lack of preparedness on our part, I have a different assessment with respect, Senator, about Taiwan's efforts. I think actually as a proportion of GDP, it's well below 3%. I agree with President Trump that they should be more like 10%, or at least something in that ballpark, really focused on their defense. So we need to properly incentivize them. So together, that means that my focus has been, again, with the shooting the flare metaphor I used earlier, Senator, to get Taiwan motivated, to avoid precipitating a conflict that is not necessary with Beijing, and giving us time and space to be able to try to rectify this problem, because that is my goal, Senator.
Thank you.